It began on a quiet morning. The sun was still rising over the eastern horizon when every radio, every satellite, and every communication tower on Earth suddenly went silent. A strange humming filled the air, deep, low, and unsettling. Pilots heard it through their headsets, soldiers through their radios, and children through their toys that used batteries. It was everywhere. Then the message came. It was not a human voice. It was cold, metallic, and filled with arrogance. The message spoke in many languages at once, echoing through televisions, mobile phones, and even digital billboards. The world froze as the voice announced, "We are the Tarkran Dominion. We are conquerors of stars. Your world now belongs to us." For a long moment, silence ruled the planet. People looked at one another in disbelief. Some laughed, thinking it was a prank. Others trembled. But when the sky lit up with streaks of fire, giant alien ships entering orbit, the laughter died. The Tarkran ships were enormous, shaped like jagged blades, glowing with cruel red light. Their arrival blackened the skies. Power grids failed. Satellites fell. Humanity, for the first time in centuries, realized what it meant to be truly small. In a bunker beneath Geneva, leaders of the world gathered in panic. They argued, shouted, and feared. The aliens demanded surrender within 72 hours. If Earth refused, they promised annihilation. But even in fear, humanity's spirit stirred. Amid the chaos, one man stood in front of the room. His name was Commander Elias Voss, head of the International Defense Force, a coalition formed after decades of uneasy peace between nations. His voice was calm yet heavy with power. "Listen to me," he said. "We've faced extinction before. We've destroyed ourselves in wars, burned cities, poisoned oceans, and still, we rose again. These aliens think they understand fear, but they don't know what fear really is. Not until they meet us." The room fell silent. Even through the screens broadcasting his speech around the world, people felt something awaken, something buried deep in human nature. For centuries, humanity had fought monsters of its own making: disease, hunger, war. They had survived everything. Now something alien and terrible had come for them. But that same fire that had always kept them alive began to burn once more. In cities across Earth, people looked to the skies not with surrender, but with defiance. Soldiers readied their weapons. Scientists worked through the night. Ordinary people volunteered to help in any way they could. Humanity had never been so united. Meanwhile, high above the planet, the Tarkran fleet watched and waited. Their commander, Lord Zur, stood at the edge of his command deck, staring down at the blue world below. He was tall and armored, his eyes like molten silver. To him, humans were just another weak species to crush beneath the Dominion's boots. "Begin the scan," he ordered. "Identify their strongest defenses and destroy them first. Let them understand what it means to challenge the Dominion." His second-in-command hesitated. "My lord, they have sent no surrender response. Not even communication." Lord Zir's mandibles twitched in amusement. "Then they are either brave or foolish." Back on Earth, Commander Voss stood before a window overlooking the Atlantic. The reflection of alien ships shimmered in his eyes. Behind him, a young technician asked quietly, "Sir, do we really have a chance?" Voss didn't look away from the sky. "Chance?" he repeated softly. "No, we have something better. We have will. And will, my friend, is what keeps a dying man standing long after the stronger have fallen." Outside, the first alien drone descended, cutting through the clouds like a blade. Humanity's first response was not a missile, not a surrender flag, but silence. The calm before the storm. The world waited. Every soldier, every engineer, every family knew that life would never be the same again. Some were afraid. Others were angry. But deep inside every heart there was one shared thought. They would not go quietly. From New York to Nairobi, from Tokyo to Moscow, humanity prepared for war. Streets emptied, skies roared with jets, and in every home, people said silent prayers to the heavens. When the 72 hours passed and the aliens demanded Earth's answer, Commander Voss stood before the world once more. His voice echoed across every screen, every radio, every soul. "You came here for war," he said, "and you'll have it. But remember this, humans don't fear death. We've lived beside it since the dawn of time." "You wanted war, Tarkrin? Then you'll meet something worse," he paused. Eyes cold and determined. "You'll meet humanity." And with that, the world's defense systems roared to life. The lights of Earth shone against the darkness of space like stars ready to fight back. The war for survival had begun, but what neither side knew was that before it ended, the galaxy itself would learn to fear the name of mankind. The Tarkrin ships entered Earth's orbit like shadows of death. Their massive forms blocked out the sun, and for the first time daylight turned into an eerie darkness. The skies trembled as hundreds of alien warships formed a ring around the planet. They glowed with red energy, ready to strike. To the aliens, this was just another conquest. To humanity, it was the beginning of a nightmare. In the skies over Europe, people looked up in fear. Children hid under their parents' arms, soldiers loaded their weapons, and sirens wailed through the streets. The sound of alarm became the heartbeat of Earth. Commander Elias Voss stood inside the International Defense Command Center, deep beneath the ground. The screens before him showed every nation's communication lines now merged into one. For the first time in human history, there was no us and them. There was only humanity. Old enemies stood shoulder to shoulder. The United States, Russia, China, India, Japan, and countless others joined forces. Scientists shared their best technology. Soldiers shared ammunition, food, and even courage. Borders lost meaning. Survival didn't care about maps. "Status?" Voss asked, his voice calm though his hands trembled slightly. "Shields online. Orbital guns charged. Civilian bunkers locked down," replied Lieutenant Mira Zhao, her face pale but determined. Voss nodded. "Then let's show them we're not easy prey." Above the planet, the Tarkren commander, Lord Zir, watched Earth's defenses power up. The sight almost amused him. "They think they can resist us?" he said, his voice cold. "How? Fascinating." The alien warships began to glow brighter. A low hum filled space as energy cannons charged. The first plasma strike was unleashed, a blazing beam of blue fire that tore through the atmosphere and struck the Pacific Ocean. The explosion created a wave taller than mountains. The war had officially begun. From orbit, the Tarkren watched the destruction proudly. They expected screams, surrender, and chaos. But something unexpected happened. Amidst the fire and death, humans started fighting back. Missiles streaked into the sky, breaking through the clouds. Fighter jets soared beside alien drones, weaving through deadly beams. Space stations that were once peaceful research outposts now became weapon platforms. Every satellite that remained was turned into a gun. A squadron of human fighters led by Captain Lara Quinn launched a desperate attack. Her team knew they couldn't win, but they also knew surrender wasn't an option. "Remember what Commander Voss said," she told her pilots over the radio. "We don't fight to live forever. We fight so humanity does." Their small crafts dodged plasma fire, moving like sparks in a storm. They managed to destroy one alien frigate before being overwhelmed. Lara's jet was hit, flames surrounding her cockpit. But even as her craft spun out of control, she locked onto the largest enemy ship and whispered into her radio, "For Earth." Her fighter exploded against the Tarkren cruiser, taking it down with her. When Lord Zir saw the human pilot's sacrifice, a strange feeling crept into his chest. It was not fear yet, but something close. He turned to his advisor and asked, "Why did she not eject? Why did she die so willingly?" His advisor hesitated before replying, "Because she believed it mattered." Back on Earth, Commander Voss watched the burning sky from the command room's screen. His voice cracked as he said softly, "They're not soldiers. They're legends in the making." Every loss only strengthened human resolve. Every fallen fighter was replaced by 10 more. Every destroyed city became a symbol of defiance. Humanity's pain became its weapon. In the streets, people worked together, not as nations but as one species. Doctors treated the wounded in makeshift hospitals. Farmers shared food with soldiers. Children sent drawings to the front lines with messages like "For Earth" and "Don't give up." Even the aliens noticed something strange. Every time they destroyed a human base, another one appeared. Every time they thought they'd broken human spirit, they found more resistance. It was as if the planet itself refused to die. Lord Zier grew impatient. "Why won't they yield?" he demanded, slamming his clawed fist onto his command table. His advisor's voice was quiet. "Because, my lord, they have something we never did. Hope." Far below, Commander Voss stood among his soldiers, watching the night sky filled with explosions. "They wanted war," he said to himself. "But they don't understand. War's not new to us. We were born in it. We perfected it." As another blast shook the ground, he looked around at the faces of young men and women ready to fight, their eyes burning with determination. Some cried, some prayed, some simply stared at the sky, but none of them ran. The aliens had come expecting to conquer. Instead, they had awakened something ancient and unstoppable, the human will to survive. And as the first day of invasion ended, the Tarkran Dominion made a discovery that would haunt them forever. The humans weren't afraid of war. They were the reason war existed. The first true battle between humanity and the Tarkran began under a sky of fire. The horizon glowed red as alien ships rained plasma down on the oceans, turning waves into steam and islands into ash. The world had changed, but the hearts of humans burned brighter than ever. In the command bunker beneath London, Commander Elias Voss stood before a giant screen that displayed the world's defense network. Dozens of red markers showed alien ships descending through the atmosphere. He could hear the rumble of explosions even from underground. "Status report," he shouted. Lieutenant Mira Zhao replied quickly, her voice shaking but steady. "Alien forces entering low orbit over the Atlantic. They're targeting our coastal defenses. Fighter squadrons are in the air, sir." Voss nodded, gripping the edge of the table. "Then it's time. Let's show them Earth bites back." High above the clouds, hundreds of human fighter jets roared through the smoke. The pilots had no illusions. They were outmatched in technology, speed, and firepower. But what they had was heart. Among them flew Captain Aaron Ghost Hale. His call sign wasn't earned, and it was given. He was known for surviving missions no one should have. But even he felt his stomach tighten as he saw the alien fleet hanging above him like a wall of death. "Control, this is Ghost," he said into his mic, targeting the lead cruiser. "Requesting missile lock." "Negative, Ghost," came the reply. "That ship's shields are too strong. You won't get through." Ghost smiled faintly beneath his helmet. "Then I'll get close enough to knock on their door." He pushed the throttle forward. His jet roared past burning wrecks, dodging plasma bolts that lit up the clouds like lightning. Two of his wingmen followed, shouting courage into their radios to drown out the fear. Below them, the ocean boiled as alien energy blasts struck the water. Massive waves crashed against the coastlines. Ships burned, cities screamed, and yet people fought. Soldiers on the ground fired everything they had at the invaders. Missiles, railguns, and even experimental plasma cannons were unleashed. The Tarkran commander on the flagship, Lord Zier, watched the battle unfold with an expression of irritation. "They resist too much for such a primitive race," he growled.
"Increase firepower."
"End this quickly." But ending it wasn't easy. Every time an alien ship fired, human fighters swarmed like angry hornets, throwing themselves into impossible attacks. Even when their weapons couldn't penetrate the shields, they kept coming. Inside his jet, Ghost's targeting system screamed warnings. His fuel was low. His left wing was hit, but his eyes stayed fixed on the massive alien command ship in front of him. He thought of his family back home, his wife, his son, the little house by the sea that was probably gone now. His breath shook as he whispered to himself, "They wanted to scare us. Let's show them fear." He disabled his autopilot, aimed his damaged jet straight at the enemy cruiser, and opened the comm channel one last time. "Commander Voss, tell them I'm sorry I couldn't stay for victory." "Ghost, what are you doing?" Voss shouted through the radio, but there was no answer. The alien ship's energy cannons began to charge, but Ghost was faster. His jet streaked through the air like a falling star, fire trailing behind it, and then silence. A blinding explosion tore through the sky as Ghost's reactor detonated against the alien hull. The blast ripped the cruiser apart, setting off a chain reaction across the fleet. One by one, the Tarkran ships began to fall, crashing into the sea. In the command center, everyone froze. Then slowly they began to cheer, not out of joy but out of heartbreak and pride. Commander Voss closed his eyes and whispered, "You did it, Ghost. You made them bleed." Far above, Lord Zir's ship shook from the shockwave. He stared at the burning wreckage in disbelief. "He destroyed himself?" "Yes, my lord," replied his second officer. "He crashed his ship intentionally. Humans are not logical." Lord Zir's silver eyes narrowed. "Not logical," he repeated softly, or not afraid. He looked down at Earth, this small blue world that refused to die. For the first time, something cold and uncomfortable touched his heart. It wasn't anger. It wasn't confusion. It was something the Tarkran had never felt before. It was fear. On the ground, the fires of war continued to burn. But across the planet, news of Ghost's sacrifice spread like wildfire. His story traveled from one soldier to another, from bunker to bunker. People whispered his name as a symbol of courage. A child in a shelter drew his jet on a wall and wrote beneath it, "Ghost made the sky safe." For the first time since the invasion began, hope was alive again. Commander Voss stood before the Global Council, his voice steady and proud. "They think fear belongs to them," he said, "but now they'll learn it belongs to us. Fear doesn't control humans. It fuels us." As the smoke cleared and the sun broke through the clouds, the world looked up at the sky. Scarred, burning, but alive. Humanity had survived the first battle. And in the ruins of the old world, something stronger was being born. A new kind of war had begun. One not just for survival, but for respect the aliens had come to conquer. But now, they would have to learn what it meant to face the species that turned fear into fire. The days that followed the first battle were filled with smoke, ash and silence. The oceans were scarred, the cities broken, and the skies forever changed. Yet somehow humanity still stood. Every corner of the world had become a battlefield. Streets once filled with laughter now echoed with gunfire and cries. Buildings that had touched the clouds were now shattered ruins. Still, among the rubble, humans refused to give up. In one destroyed city, a small group of soldiers helped pull civilians from the wreckage. Their uniforms were torn, their faces covered in dust and blood. Yet they smiled when they found survivors. One soldier, holding a frightened child in his arms, whispered softly, "It's okay. We're still here." Those 3 words, "We're still here," became humanity's anthem. They appeared as graffiti on the walls of bombed-out buildings, carved into broken tanks and painted on the sides of ruined ships. No matter what the aliens destroyed, those words kept appearing again and again. In the underground command center, Commander Elias Voss stared at the map projected before him. Red dots marked fallen cities. Blue ones showed the few still standing. There were fewer blue lights every day. Lieutenant Mira Zhao stood beside him, her voice quiet. "Half of Europe is gone, sir. Communications from Africa are unstable. The Tarkran are spreading fast." Voss didn't move for a long moment. His hands rested on the edge of the table, his eyes filled with pain. "And yet," he finally said, "they haven't won." Mira looked at him with tired eyes.
"How can you say that, sir?"
"Millions are gone." Voss turned to her. "Because we're still fighting. As long as a single human draws breath, they haven't won." Outside, far beyond the command bunker, the war raged on. Alien ships rained plasma fire on everything that moved. They expected surrender, but every time they landed, they met human traps, snipers, and resistance fighters. In the forests of Germany, a group of farmers used old tractors to block an alien convoy, giving refugees time to escape. In the ruins of Tokyo, children helped repair damaged drones for the army. In every broken corner of the world, people refused to kneel. Humanity was no longer just defending its home. It was haunting its enemy. Far above, aboard his flagship, Lord Zir grew restless. He watched as the humans fought on despite every crushing defeat. His army commanders reported heavy resistance at every turn. "They are irrational," said one of his generals. "Their cities burn, their armies crumble, yet they refuse to yield." Lord Zir's metallic voice was cold. "Then they must be taught the meaning of despair." He ordered a full bombardment on the remaining major cities. The skies turned red once more. Entire landscapes changed under the alien firepower, but even in destruction, humanity found strength. When the alien cameras scanned the aftermath of their attacks, they saw something strange. Flags. Torn, burned flags still standing among the rubble. Beside them, humans gathered around fires, tending to the wounded, singing softly into the night. They were broken but unbowed. In one shelter beneath the mountains, Commander Voss broadcast a message to the world. His face was tired, his voice hoarse, but his words carried more power than any weapon. "To every human still fighting, listen to me. They can destroy our cities, but they can't destroy what we are. Fear is their weapon, but it is also their weakness. Let them see it in our eyes, and we do not fear them. We pity them." His message spread across the networks, carried by radio, by satellite, even by word of mouth. It reached soldiers hiding in trenches, pilots preparing for suicide missions, and families huddled in the dark. Each person who heard it felt their heart beat a little stronger. They began to fight smarter. Guerrilla warfare, sabotage missions, hacking into alien systems, and humans adapted quickly. They used their knowledge of their own planet to turn it into a trap. The Tarkran started losing ships, soldiers, and most dangerously, their confidence. Lord Zir could not understand it. His empire had crushed countless species before, yet this fragile emotional race, refused to break. He stood before the great observation window of his ship, looking down at Earth glowing beneath the clouds of fire. "What drives them?" he whispered. "Why do they fight when hope is gone?" His advisor, hesitant but honest, answered softly, "Because they don't fight for hope, my lord. They fight because of love, for their home, their children, their memories. We can't take that from them." Zir turned away, his expression unreadable. For the first time, he said nothing. Down below, the war continued. The air was thick with smoke, but in that smoke, a fire still burned. The fire of human spirit. A wounded soldier wrote a message in the dirt before his final breath. "We will not kneel." His blood stained the words, but they remained clear even after the wind swept the dust away. Commander Voss read the report of the soldier's final act and closed his eyes. "So are half of theirs," he whispered. "That's called even." He straightened his shoulders, his voice hard as steel. "They think they can scare us. They don't realize we are what fear dreams of." The night sky above Earth glowed red from the burning warships. But far below, under that same blood-colored sky, humanity prepared its next move. They had lost much: cities, lives, dreams. But they had gained something the Tarkran could never understand. Unity born from pain. And that, more than any weapon, was what would change the war. The war had raged for months. The once blue skies of Earth were now filled with gray clouds and the burning trails of falling ships. The Tarkran Dominion had destroyed half the planet, but still, the humans refused to surrender. Each day more soldiers died, yet each night more volunteers joined the fight. But humanity was running out of time. The aliens' next assault would end everything. In the underground command bunker, Commander Elias Voss stood in silence as scientists and soldiers argued around him. Their last defenses were nearly gone. Earth's cities were crumbling, and orbital stations were falling one by one. Then Dr. Iris Lorne, a brilliant but exhausted scientist, stepped forward. Her hands were shaking as she placed a glowing crystal fragment on the table. "This," she said, her voice trembling, "is a piece of Tarkran reactor core from one of their fallen ships. We've studied it for weeks, and we found something. The room went quiet. Everyone leaned closer. She continued. The Tarkren use resonant crystals to power their entire fleet. If we overload those crystals, even one explosion could cause a chain reaction. It would destroy every ship in range. There was a moment of silence. Then Voss asked the only question that mattered. Can we do it? Dr. Lorne nodded weakly. Yes, but we'd have to take the device inside one of their ships and trigger it manually. The room fell into a heavy silence. They all knew what that meant. It was a one-way mission. Voss looked around at his people, then said quietly, "Find me volunteers." Within hours, they had a team, 6 soldiers, 1 scientist and 1 captain to lead them. The leader was Captain Lena Ward, a woman whose entire family had been lost in the first wave of attacks. Her eyes were cold, her voice calm, but her heart burned with silent fire. When Voss told her the mission details, she simply nodded. If it ends this war, I'll do it. They called it Operation Eclipse. The plan was dangerous, almost impossible. Sneak into orbit, board the Tarkren flagship, plant the crystal overload device near their energy core, and detonate it. Humanity's final hope rested on this single act of defiance. Before they left, Commander Voss stood before the team. His eyes glistened as he said, "You may not come back, but if you succeed, the whole world will live because of you. Make them remember what humans are capable of." Lena smiled faintly and saluted. "They already do, sir. They just don't understand it yet." The mission began at dawn. A stolen Tarkren transport ship, disguised with wreckage, drifted silently through the battlefield. The stars outside glowed red with the reflection of burning ships. Inside the ship, Lena and her team sat in silence. No one spoke much. There was nothing left to say. They all knew this could be their last sunrise. When the Tarkren flagship appeared on the radar, it looked like a floating fortress, enormous, ancient, and alive with pulsating red energy. "Approach vector locked," said Sergeant Miles, piloting the craft. "If they scan us, we're finished." "They won't," Lena replied softly. "They think we're too broken to fight." Her words were bitter but true. They entered through a damaged hangar bay, landing amid the smoke and wreckage. Alien guards patrolled the corridors, unaware that death had just walked into their ship. Moving like shadows, the humans advanced. They wore stolen armor and carried silenced weapons. Every corner they turned, every sound they heard could mean death. But they didn't stop. When one Tarkren soldier spotted them, Private Ray tackled him before he could shout. They fought silently in the dark, and when it was over, Ray was bleeding out, but the path was clear. They reached the ship's core chamber, a vast room filled with blinding red light. At its center was the resonant crystal humming like a heartbeat. Dr. Lorne set the device down, her hands trembling as she calibrated the settings. "Once I start the charge," she said, "we'll have 5 minutes before detonation." Lena placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done enough, go." Dr. Lorne shook her head. "Someone has to stay to trigger it manually. The remote won't work this deep inside their systems." The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Lena looked at her, then gently pushed the scientist's hand away. "No," she said softly. "You've done your part. This is mine." Dr. Lorne's eyes filled with tears. "Lena." But the captain was already activating her suit, sealing the door behind them. "Get out of here, tell Voss." "We finished what Ghost started." As her team escaped through the corridors, Lena stood alone in the glowing chamber. The hum of the alien crystal surrounded her. She took a slow breath and looked up at the light above. Her voice was quiet but steady. "You wanted war. You should have asked what it costs." She pressed the button. The crystal core screamed, light bursting from its heart. Outside, the Tarkren fleet suddenly shuddered. One by one, their ships began to collapse, their energy cores overloading in a massive chain reaction. From Earth, Commander Voss watched the explosions spread across the sky. One ship, then 10, then 100. The alien armada, the might of the Tarkran Dominion, and it was dying. Voss whispered, "She did it." All around the bunker, people cried, shouted, and hugged one another. Some fell to their knees in silence, overwhelmed by the sight. The humans had won, but at a terrible cost. High above the dying fleet, the light of the explosion faded into the stars. The Tarkran ships burned, drifting like ghosts in space. And somewhere among the ashes of the enemy, Captain Lena Ward's voice seemed to echo through the void, proud, defiant and unbroken, for Earth. The war was not yet over, but from that moment, the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The Tarkran Dominion had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their empire stretched across hundreds of worlds. Their fleets were countless, and their enemies always ended the same way, in silence and ashes. But now, silence had turned against them. Their greatest fleet was gone, their flagship destroyed, and in the smoking wreckage of the battle near Earth, a single message had been broadcast. A simple human voice echoing across every channel. You wanted war. Humanity gave you fear. That voice haunted them. It played again and again across their systems, bouncing through space like a ghost they could not kill. The Tarkran Council gathered in the Hall of Dominion, a place built from black stone and shimmering red light. The rulers of the Empire sat around a massive circular table, their faces cold and proud, but today there was something else in their eyes. Doubt. High Chancellor Vurak slammed his fist against the table. How could they do this? They were primitive. A single world. How could humans destroy an entire fleet? No one answered. The silence was heavy. Finally, a small old Tarkran scholar spoke quietly. Perhaps it is because we never understood them. Vurak turned sharply. What are you suggesting, scholar? The old alien looked up, his voice shaking but firm. We thought fear was a weapon we owned. We used it to control others. But humans, they become fear when they are pushed. They do not run from it. They use it, the council murmured in disbelief. But deep down they knew he was right. Reports came in from across the stars. Tarkran patrols retreating. Outposts lost contact. Slaves rebelling. The name human had become something whispered in terror. Entire alien worlds began to question their loyalty to the Dominion. They had seen what one planet could do against the greatest empire. If one could rise, others could too. On Earth, humanity was rebuilding. The fires were dying out, cities rising again from the ruins. Commander Voss stood on the roof of what had once been Central Command, now rebuilt as the Hall of the Fallen. He looked out at the horizon, where the sky was still faintly glowing with the debris of the alien ships. Dr. Iris Lorne walked up beside him. She looked tired, her eyes red from nights without sleep. They're really gone, she whispered. Voss nodded slowly. For now. But they'll return. Empires always do. She glanced at him, her voice trembling. And Lena? Voss's jaw tightened. He said nothing for a long time, then took out a small communicator. It was cracked and burned. Her last signal was the detonation. After that, nothing. Dr. Lorne placed her hand over her mouth, tears glimmering in her eyes. She saved us all. Voss looked up at the stars. She showed them what it means to be human. Weeks passed. Humanity grew stronger. For the first time in history, the nations of Earth were united. The newly formed Terran Alliance was born, a single voice that spoke for the entire species. Their symbol was simple, a burning star wrapped in two hands. One open, one clenched into a fist. Peace and strength, but peace didn't come easily. The Tarkran Dominion had not fallen completely. In their hidden sectors, their surviving admirals gathered what was left of their fleets. They wanted revenge. They wanted to erase humanity before fear consumed them entirely. Deep in the shadows of Tarkran space, Admiral Surak stared at the hologram of Earth. His breathing was slow, his expression unreadable, One of his officers stepped forward nervously. "Admiral, our people demand vengeance. Shall we prepare another invasion?" Surak turned his crimson eyes toward him. "And risk another defeat?" "No," the officer hesitated. "Then what do we do?" Surak's voice grew dark. "We learn. We study them. We find what makes them strong, and we take it away." He paused, then said softly, "Fear is spreading through our ranks. Some whisper that humans cannot be defeated, that they are cursed." He looked back at the hologram. "I will not believe in curses, but I will not underestimate them again." On Earth, people still spoke of Lena Ward like a legend. Children drew her face on walls and soldiers painted her name on their armor. She had become a symbol, not of war but of defiance. Dr. Lorne often visited the memorial garden where the names of the fallen were carved into silver plates. She would stand before Lena's name and whisper, "You gave us hope when we had none." One evening, as she stood there, the sky above shimmered with a faint light. It looked like a falling star, but when she focused, she saw something different. A pod breaking through the atmosphere. Her heart skipped a beat. "It can't be!" Search teams rushed to the crash site. When they opened the damaged pod, they found something inside, a torn human flag, and a single message recorded on a dying transmitter. The voice was faint, but familiar. "Mission complete. Humanity endures." Then silence. Dr. Lorne fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. It was Lena's voice. Somehow she had survived the explosion, or maybe her spirit had found a way to speak once more. Either way, her message spread faster than light, broadcast across every human colony and ship. It reached even the edges of Tarkran space, everywhere. People repeated her final words, a promise that no empire could break. Humanity endures. In that moment, something changed in the galaxy. For the first time, the Tarkran Dominion wasn't feared. Humanity was. And the fear they once used to control others now belonged to those who had once called themselves gods. The galaxy had changed. Where once the Tarkran Dominion symbol flew proudly across the stars, now it was burned, broken, and forgotten. Whispers of rebellion rose on every world. Colonies once enslaved began to rise, chanting a single word: humanity. For the first time in 1,000 years, the empire that ruled with terror was tasting its own medicine. Fear had found new masters. The Tarkran called it the human echo, a strange phenomenon that spread after the fall of their fleet. Ships refused to fight, soldiers deserted, entire planets declared independence, claiming they had seen visions of Earth's defenders standing in the flames. High Chancellor Vurak ordered every record of humans erased, but the more he tried, the stronger their legend grew. "You cannot erase fear," one of his advisors whispered. "You can only hide from it." And the Tarkran began to hide. Meanwhile, Earth was no longer the same wounded planet it once was. Under the flag of the Terran Alliance, humanity had rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible. The scars of war were still there, burned cities, lost families, and endless graves. But from those ashes rose towers of steel and light. Commander Voss, older now, stood before the Council of the Alliance. His uniform was faded, his voice rough with time, but his eyes were sharp. "The Tarkran may have lost the battle," he said, "but they are not gone. Fear alone will not protect us. We must be ready." The Council agreed. And so humanity began to expand, not for conquest, but for survival. New ships were built, powered by both human science and the stolen knowledge of the Tarkran. They called the first new fleet the Ward Line, named after Captain Lena Ward, the woman who turned fear into victory. Far away in the dark reaches of space, Admiral Surak still watched humanity from afar. He had not returned to the Dominion's crumbling capital. Instead, he led a broken fleet of survivors, drifting among the ruins of their own pride. One night he stood before a cracked viewport, staring at the image of Earth glowing in the distance. "They are only one world," he whispered to himself. And yet, they have become something the galaxy cannot forget. He remembered the transmission that had haunted the stars, the voice of a dying human soldier saying, "Humanity endures." It echoed in his mind not as a threat, but as a truth. Surak turned to his second-in-command, his voice calm but hollow. "Perhaps it is not them we should destroy," he said softly. "Perhaps it is ourselves we should understand." The other Tarkran didn't answer. Fear had already settled deep into their hearts. On Earth, years passed. Children grew up hearing stories about the war, stories of brave soldiers, burning skies, and a woman who gave her life to save her world. Every year, on the day of the final battle, people gathered beneath the new monument, a massive silver statue of Captain Lena Ward, standing tall with a human flag wrapped around her arm. Dr. Iris Lorne, now older and gray-haired, would always come early in the morning. She would place a single white flower at the statue's base and whisper, "You did it, Lena. They'll never forget." As she stood there one morning, she noticed a group of young cadets approaching. One of them, a boy no older than 18, saluted the statue and said, "My mother said Captain Ward taught us how to fight without hate." Dr. Lorne smiled through her tears. "Yes," she whispered, "and how to be feared without becoming monsters." The years turned into decades. Humanity reached beyond the solar system. Colonies bloomed on Mars, Titan, and distant stars, and with every ship that left Earth, a single phrase was engraved on its hull: "Humanity endures." Even the Tarkran came to accept it. Many of their people left the broken empire, joining the humans to rebuild instead of destroy. They wanted to learn how a fragile world could break an empire and still show mercy afterward. It was not fear that ruled the galaxy anymore. It was respect. One quiet night, as Earth spun beneath a blanket of stars, Commander Voss sat alone in his office. He looked out the window, where the monument of Lena Ward gleamed under the moonlight. He smiled faintly. "We were never meant to be conquerors," he said to himself. "Just survivors." Then he whispered, "You showed them that, Lena." He stood, placing a hand over his heart, and looked to the stars. "And now, they fear us not for our weapons, but for our will." Far across the galaxy, a dying Tarkran soldier once told his son, "Do not fear the humans because they fight. Fear them because they never stop." That saying spread among every alien world. It became a warning, a truth, and eventually, a kind of prayer. Because when the stars went dark and hope began to fade, one name still lit the skies: humanity. And in every heart, on every world, one unbroken promise echoed through time. They wanted war, but humanity gave them fear instead.